Hi everyone. Today I'll be comparing the two low-income countries of El Salvador and Vietnam. El Salvador is located in Central America with a population of over 6 million people. They were colonized by the Spanish, and their Independence Day was September 15, 1821. In 2011, due to environmental degradation, a hurricane hit El Salvador, affecting 1.4 million people, causing $902 million in damages. Vietnam is located in Southeast Asia, with a population of over 95 million people. They were colonized by the Chinese and then the French. The Independence Day was the 2nd of September 1945. From 1955 to 1975, the Communist Northern Vietnam and the Viet Cong fought against South Vietnam and the U.S. Army. The war ended up killing 6 million people. Industries. Well, here on the slide you can see the main imports and exports of both countries. A quick analysis is that El Salvador, they export inexpensive products and they import from other countries more expensive products. This has led to them spending $9.444 billion US on importing goods and only making $4.556 billion US from exporting their goods. This has led to El Salvador's external debt rate of $14.9 billion. This is where Vietnam slightly differs from El Salvador. They export more expensive products and they import a little bit more inexpensive products. They spend $161 billion US on their imports, and they make $169 billion on their exports. But their external debt rate is $78.88 billion US of and compared to El Salvador's 14.9, that is a lot. But Vietnam makes more money from their industries business, so they're making a profit while El Salvador is not. Here on the slide, you can see their development indicator stats, such as the HGI index numbers, their rankings, their GDP per capita, and their Gini per capita. A quick analysis of this information is that as people in Vietnam make less than people in El Salvador, Vietnam as a country makes more than El Salvador. Vietnam makes a GDP of $171.3 billion US, while El Salvador's $25.85 billion US. But I think people in El Salvador make more is because they have a population of just over 6 million, while Vietnam's is just over 95 million, meaning that in El Salvador there's more to spread out than in Vietnam. Both these countries have geography. Both these countries have fairly similar climates, except Vietnam is a little bit more temperate. El Salvador has more severe natural disasters, such as they experience hurricanes and earthquakes very frequently. El Salvador has more arable land, as you can see on the slide, meaning they can improve their agriculture and plant more crops on their land. And as you can see, the amount of fossil fuels that they both consume, Vietnam consumes more, meaning that they are Vietnam is less environmentally friendly than El Salvador. Okay, so here you can see the income development indicators, such as the poverty rates for both countries and their Gini indexes. Here you can see their health development indicators, such as life expectancy, infant mortality rates, health, and how much the country spends on health expenditures. And here are the development indicators for education, where they rate their adult literacy, school enrollment, and primary level, and the mean years of schooling. An analysis for both countries is that, one second. Okay, so Vietnam spends more on healthcare and such, but Vietnam and El Salvador have around the same health statistics, except El Salvador's infant mortality rate is slightly, lower than Vietnam's. So the limitation of health statistics is that they fall victim to averaging, and major outliers in health data can get excluded in data, and like the average. And when it comes to education, there is less school enrollment at primary level in Vietnam, but the more percentage of adults can read in Vietnam, and they spend more years in school there, meaning that Vietnam's education is better than El Salvador's. A limitation of the school of education statistics is that when it comes to third world countries, education doesn't really mean much because everybody sort of ends up with the same job. In Vietnam, 79% of the population work in jobs that do not truly help the country achieve high levels of development because 79% of the population works as janitors and farmers. As you can see, the major difference in El Salvador and Vietnam is their different government rulings, as El Salvador is a democracy and Vietnam are single-party socialists. A problem in El Salvador is the government and police involvement in crime since the Civil War, such as human trafficking and drug trafficking, and in Vietnam is that the government lacks government transparency, media freedom, and accountability. But El Salvador is less corrupt than Vietnam, seeing as their corruption score is 38 and Vietnam's is 31. In my conclusion, I can see why both these countries are low-income countries, but I believe that El Salvador should be held higher than Vietnam, seeing as people in that country make more. They're slightly healthier than people in Vietnam, and their government is more transparent than people in Vietnam. And I think just Vietnam is less economically friendly. They have less arable land. And I just believe that Vietnam should be held higher, but both these countries have a lot of development left to grow to achieve full development.